She's just a bet, Denzel's voice roared through the small crack of the door. Yvonne Adeyemi froze. Her perfectly manicured hand hovered inches from the brass door handle, her engagement ring catching the hallway light like a cruel joke. Bro, you're actually going through with this? Jordan's voice followed, dripping with disbelief. Laughter erupted from inside the presidential suite. Drunk, mocking laughter. Listen, Denzel continued, his words slightly slurred, I told y'all 6 months ago I could bag anyone. Yvonne with her uppity attitude, her fancy law degree, acting like she's better than everyone. Tomorrow I marry her, finally smash, and 2 weeks later? Divorce papers. Then I will collect my $50,000 from each of you. The best part? Denzel's voice dropped conspiratorially. She has no idea. She actually thinks I love her. Yvonne's heart stopped beating. The hallway tilted. The bouquet of white roses she'd been carrying, a surprise for her groom, slipped from her trembling fingers, scattering petals across the marble floor like drops of blood. 2 years. 2 years of dates, of meeting his family, of planning the perfect wedding, of keeping her virginity because he'd said he wanted their wedding night to be special and pure and it was all a bet? Before we dive deeper into this story of betrayal, revenge, and the dangerous Korean mafia boss who will change Yvonne's life forever, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's continue. Yvonne stumbled backward, her stilettos clicking against the marble as tears blurred her vision. The corridor of the Ritz-Carlton stretched endlessly before her, the crystal chandeliers overhead suddenly too bright, too mocking. She wanted to burst through that door and slap the taste out of Denzel's mouth. She wanted to scream, to rage, to demand answers. But her body wouldn't cooperate. Instead, it chose flight. She ran. The elevator seemed miles away. Her champagne-colored Versace dress, the one she'd bought specifically for tonight's rehearsal dinner, felt like a prison around her chest. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Yvonne Adeyemi didn't cry. She was a corporate attorney at one of New York's most prestigious law firms. She'd graduated top of her class at Columbia. She'd faced down boardrooms full of men who'd tried to undermine her, who dismissed her because of her gender and her skin color. She had never been broken. But tonight, she was breaking. The elevator deposited her on the 32nd floor, the exclusive club level where their wedding party had booked the entire wing. The rehearsal dinner downstairs was still in full swing, but she couldn't go back there. Couldn't face her mother's proud smile, her father's tears of joy, her bridesmaids' excitement. Everything was a lie. A server walked past carrying a tray of champagne. Without thinking, Yvonne grabbed a glass and drained it in one desperate gulp. Then another. The bubbles burned her throat, but she didn't care. She needed to get to her room. Needed to think. Needed to decide what to do. The hallway swam before her eyes. Strange. 2 glasses of champagne shouldn't hit this hard. She'd had wine at dinner, but still. She didn't know that the champagne she'd grabbed had been spiked with Rohypnol, intended for a completely different victim by a man who'd been stalking a pop star staying on the same floor. Yvonne stumbled, catching herself against the wall. The numbers on the doors blurred together. Was she in 3207? Or 3217? She couldn't remember. Her keycard trembled in her hand as she swiped it against a door. It clicked green. She pushed inside, not bothering to turn on the lights. The curtains were open, Manhattan's skyline painting the suite in shadows of gold and blue. She kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the massive bed, tears finally streaming down her face. Who are you? The voice came from the darkness, deep, cold, and lethal. Yvonne scrambled upright, her heart hammering. A figure emerged from the shadows near the window. Tall. Broad-shouldered. The city lights illuminated half his face, revealing sharp cheekbones, a sculpted jaw, and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through her. He was beautiful. Dangerously so. Like a Greek god carved from ice and obsidian. Yvonne's words died in her throat. The room spun violently. Wrong room. I'm in the wrong room. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Strong arms caught her before she hit the floor. You've been drugged, the stranger said, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't place. Your pupils are dilated. Breathing shallow. I'm fine, she slurred, even as she sagged against his chest. He smelled like sandalwood and danger. I just need to. Denzel, he. The tears came again, harder this time. She was crying against a stranger's chest in a hotel room that wasn't hers, drugged and heartbroken and completely out of control. He said I was a bet, she whispered. 2 years. A bet. He never loved me. The stranger said nothing. His arms remained steady around her as she cried, her tears staining what she dimly realized was an extremely expensive silk shirt. I was supposed to marry him tomorrow, she continued, the words pouring out unchecked. But he only wanted to use me. To win some stupid bet with his friends. Then don't marry him. Yvonne laughed bitterly. It's not that simple. The wedding. Our families. Everyone's already here. My dress. The flowers. Everything. Do you always make decisions based on what others expect? The question cut through her drugged haze. She pulled back slightly, trying to focus on his face. Up close, his features were even more striking, mixed heritage, she realized. Korean, definitely. But something else too. His dark eyes held an intensity that made her shiver. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who doesn't believe in wasting time on people who don't deserve it. She should leave. Every rational part of her brain screamed to leave. But the drugs were pulling her under, and his arms were warm, and Denzel's words were still echoing in her skull like a death sentence. He said I was just a bet, she repeated. Like I was nothing. You're not nothing. His voice was firm. Certain. And suddenly Yvonne was tired of being the good girl. Tired of waiting, of playing by the rules, of being respectable. She'd saved herself for a man who'd been laughing behind her back the entire time. She looked up at the stranger, her inhibitions stripped away by the drugs and the betrayal. Make me forget, she breathed. Just for tonight. Make me forget him. His jaw tightened. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking you to help me destroy the last piece of myself that belonged to him. For a long moment, he studied her. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Desire, yes, but something else too. Something calculating. You'll regret this in the morning. I'm already full of regret, Yvonne whispered. What's one more? She kissed him. And the stranger, the one with the cold eyes and the dangerous aura, kissed her back. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows like an accusation. Yvonne's eyes fluttered open, and for a single blissful second, she didn't remember. Then everything came crashing down, Denzel's betrayal, the drugged champagne, the stranger's room, the night that followed. She sat up too fast, clutching the Egyptian cotton sheets to her chest. The bed beside her was empty, but the sheets were still warm. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Her dress lay crumpled on the floor near a chair. Her underwear dangled from a lampshade. Her brain struggled to piece together fragments of the night, hands on her skin, whispered words in her ear, pleasure that had made her forget her own name. Oh God. What had she done? The bathroom door opened, and steam billowed out like smoke from a dragon's lair. The stranger emerged, except now, in the harsh light of morning, Yvonne could see him clearly. He was shirtless, water droplets rolling down a torso covered in intricate tattoos. Dragons and tigers wound around his arms and across his chest. The imagery was beautiful and terrifying, and unmistakably Yakuza style, though the designs incorporated Korean elements she recognized. Hanja characters. A phoenix rising from flames. This was not just some businessman staying at the Ritz-Carlton. He wrapped a towel around his waist and fixed her with those penetrating eyes. In daylight, they were even more unsettling, dark brown with flecks of gold, framed by thick lashes. Good morning, Yvonne. She scrambled for her dress, holding it against her body like a shield. How do you know my name? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. He picked up a wallet from the dresser, her wallet, and tossed it onto the bed. You dropped your purse when you broke into my room. I didn't break in. The keycard worked. Interesting, isn't it? He moved to the closet, pulling out a crisp black shirt. How a card for room 3207 happened to open room 3217. Yvonne's blood ran cold. That's not possible. In my world, many impossible things happen. He buttoned his shirt with practiced ease. The question is, why would someone want us to meet? Us? She clutched her dress tighter. There is no us. This was a mistake. I was drugged, I was heartbroken, and I made a horrible decision. But this never happened. I'm getting married today. He went still. When he turned to face her, his expression had hardened into something that made her want to run. You're still planning to marry Denzel Thompson? After what he did? The way he said Denzel's name, with such cold familiarity, made her stomach drop. How do you know who my fiancé is? He crossed the room in 3 strides and sat on the edge of the bed. Up close, she could see a thin scar running along his jawline. Because Denzel Thompson is my younger half-brother. The world stopped spinning. What? My name is Kang Seo-jun. My mother was Korean, Kang Min-ji. She had an affair with Richard Thompson, Denzel's father, 33 years ago while he was stationed in Seoul. When she became pregnant, Richard paid her off and returned to the States to marry his proper American fiancée. His voice was devoid of emotion, like he was reciting facts from a textbook. I was raised in South Korea until I was 15, when my mother died. Then I went into business for myself. Business, Yvonne repeated. What kind of business? Seo-jun's smile didn't reach his eyes. The kind that made the Thompson family very nervous when I showed up in New York 3 years ago. The kind that's made Richard Thompson lose sleep every night wondering when I'll come to collect what's owed. Yvonne's legal training kicked in despite her panic. You're a criminal. I prefer entrepreneur in alternative markets. You're mafia. Korean mafia. He shrugged like she'd commented on the weather. The Korean-American business community calls my organization the GM Group. We have interests in real estate, entertainment, finance. We also handle disputes that the traditional legal system can't touch. This isn't happening. Yvonne grabbed her dress and stood, wrapping it around herself awkwardly. I need to leave. I need to marry the man who called you a bet. His words stopped her cold. I heard everything you said last night, Seo-jun continued. About Denzel. About the bet. About how he plans to divorce you in 2 weeks. He stood, buttoning his cuffs with deliberate precision. Does that sound like a man worthy of your loyalty? You don't know anything about me. I know you're a senior associate at Patterson and Webb. I know you graduated summa cum laude from Columbia Law School. I know you've won 7 out of 7 cases this year and that you're on track for partner. His eyes met hers. I know you're too smart to shackle yourself to a man who sees you as nothing more than a conquest. Yvonne's heart hammered. How do you know all that? I've been watching the Thompson family for years. That includes knowing who they're connected to. He paused. What I didn't expect was to find his fiancée in my bed. This was a mistake. Was it? Seo-jun moved closer. Or was it fate? I don't believe in fate. Neither do I. I believe in opportunities. He reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. Marry me instead. Yvonne laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. You're insane. Possibly. But think about it. Right now, you have 2 choices. You can go downstairs, put on your white dress, and marry a man who views you as a trophy to be won and discarded. You'll spend the next 2 weeks in a mockery of a marriage before he throws you away like garbage. Or, you marry me. You get your revenge on Denzel. You walk into that ceremony on my arm and watch his face as he realizes his bet has backfired spectacularly. The image was tempting. Terrifyingly tempting. Why would you want to marry me? You don't even know me. I know enough. You're intelligent, beautiful, and you have a fire in you that my brother is too foolish to appreciate. His expression darkened. And marrying you would destroy him in a way that violence never could. It would prove that everything he thinks belongs to him can be taken. So I'd just be a weapon in your vendetta? No. Seo Jun's voice softened unexpectedly. You'd be my wife. A partnership of equals. I would never lie to you, Yvonne. Never bet on you like you're a prize at a carnival. And in return, would give you everything my brother never could, respect, honesty, and the power to destroy anyone who ever tries to hurt you again. Yvonne's mind raced. This was insane. Absolutely insane. She couldn't marry a man she just met. A criminal. A mafia boss. Denzel's secret half-brother. But then she thought about walking down that aisle. Thought about smiling at Denzel while he laughed at her in his mind. Thought about giving him her virginity on their wedding night while he counted down the days until he could throw her away. The anger that flooded her veins was hot and pure and clarifying. If I agree to this, she said slowly, I have conditions. Seo Jun's eyebrow arched. I'm listening. First, no lies. Ever. If you're doing something illegal, you tell me. If there's danger, you tell me. I won't be kept in the dark like some helpless princess. Agreed. Second, this is a partnership. I'm not some trophy wife sitting at home. I continue my career. I make my own money. I have my own life. I wouldn't expect anything less. Third, she hesitated. What happened last night doesn't automatically mean, I was drugged. I wasn't in my right mind. I'm not agreeing to. Physical intimacy will happen on your terms and your timeline, Seo Jun finished. You have my word. Yvonne studied him. Every instinct told her this was dangerous. That she was making an impulsive decision out of anger and hurt. That she should walk away and figure things out on her own. But another part of her, the part that had spent years being underestimated, dismissed, and treated like a trophy, wanted to burn Denzel's world to the ground. How fast can you get a marriage license? Seo Jun smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. I have a judge on the payroll. We can be married within the hour. Then let's do it. Let's crash my own wedding. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton had been transformed into a winter wonderland. White roses cascaded from crystal chandeliers. An ice sculpture of two swans sat at the center of the champagne fountain. 300 guests filled the gilded chairs, fanning themselves with programs that featured Denzel and Yvonne's smiling faces. At the altar, Denzel Thompson stood in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, radiating the smug confidence of a man who believed he'd won. His groomsmen flanked him, including Jordan, Jerome, and Anthony, the same friends who'd been laughing about the bet just 12 hours ago. Denzel's father, Richard Thompson, sat in the front row beside his wife, both of them reeking of old money and older prejudices. They'd never quite approved of their son marrying a black woman, but Yvonne's family had connections they wanted access to. Politics made strange bedfellows. The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's canon. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened. Everyone rose, turning to catch a glimpse of the bride. But instead of a bride in white, Yvonne Adeyemi walked in wearing a blood-red Oscar de la Renta gown that hugged her curves like a declaration of war. Her locks were swept into an elaborate updo adorned with tiny gold clips, and her makeup was fierce, bold red lips, dramatic winged liner, cheekbones that could cut glass. And on her arm was Kang Seo Jun, dressed in a black three-piece suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He moved like a predator, graceful, controlled, and absolutely certain of his dominance. The string quartet stuttered to a halt. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Denzel's face went from confusion to recognition to absolute horror in the space of 3 seconds. Seo Jun? Hello, little brother. Seo Jun's voice carried easily in the stunned silence. I believe there's been a change of plans. What the hell is going on? Denzel stepped forward, his eyes darting between Yvonne and Seo Jun. Yvonne? What is this? Yvonne released Seo Jun's arm and walked toward the altar alone. Every step was deliberate. Every click of her heels echoed through the silent ballroom like gunshots. She stopped directly in front of Denzel, close enough to see the panic in his eyes. I was a bet, she said softly, but the acoustics carried her voice to every corner of the room. 3 years of my life. A bet for $50,000 from each of your pathetic friends. The murmurs erupted. Yvonne saw Jordan go pale. Jerome backed toward the side exit. Anthony looked like he might pass out. Baby, I don't know what he told you, Denzel stammered, reaching for her hands. But whatever it is, he's lying. He's trying to get between us. The best part is she has no idea, Yvonne quoted, her voice rising. She actually thinks I love her. Denzel's face crumbled. You heard that? Every word. The murmurs became shouts. Yvonne's mother rose from her seat, her face a mask of fury. Her father's hand went to his chest, and her brother Isaiah had to stop him from charging the altar. You know what the funny thing is? Yvonne continued, turning to address the crowd now. I spent 3 years waiting for this man. Saying no to other opportunities. Building my life around someone who saw me as nothing more than a prize to be won. She laughed, a cold, sharp sound. But the joke's on you, Denzel. Because while you were counting down to your payday, I found someone who actually sees my worth. She held up her left hand. The engagement ring was gone. In its place was a new ring, a massive cushion-cut black diamond surrounded by smaller white diamonds, set in platinum. It was bold. Unconventional. Absolutely stunning. I got married this morning, Yvonne announced. To your brother. The ballroom erupted. Denzel lunged forward, but Seo Jun was faster. He stepped between them, catching Denzel's fist in mid-swing with casual ease. Careful, little brother. Seo Jun's voice was soft but carried an edge of menace that made several guests step back. That's my wife you're threatening. Your wife? Denzel spat. You don't even know her. You just wanted to get back at Dad, is that it? Use her to hurt us? I wanted to take everything you took for granted, Seo Jun replied calmly. But Yvonne is no one's pawn. She made her choice. She chose me. Richard Thompson finally found his voice. He pushed through the crowd, his face purple with rage. You. I told you to stay away from my family. I told you. You told me nothing, Seo Jun cut him off. You paid off my mother and pretended I didn't exist for 30 years. Well, I exist now. And so does my claim to everything that should have been mine. You have no claim. You're nothing but a what? Seo Jun's eyes went cold. A bastard? A criminal? A Korean? He smiled without warmth. I'm all of those things. I'm also the man who controls 40% of the real estate in Koreatown, who has connections in every major financial institution in this city, and who knows exactly how the Thompson Corporation has been laundering money through its charitable foundation. Richard went pale. But we can discuss that later. Seo Jun turned to Yvonne and offered his arm. My wife and I have a reception to attend. Yvonne took his arm, ignoring Denzel's strangled protests and her mother's confused tears. She'd explain everything to her family later. Right now, she was too high on adrenaline to feel anything but fierce satisfaction. As they walked down the aisle, the one she'd imagined walking down in white for so long, she caught sight of Jordan trying to slink away through a side door. Oh, Jordan, she called out sweetly. He froze. I know where you work. I know where you live. And I know that you were part of this bet. She smiled. Don't bother checking your bank account. My husband has already frozen your assets pending a fraud investigation. Have a lovely day. Jordan's face went gray. Seo Jun leaned down to whisper in her ear. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Just keep your promises, she whispered back, and you won't have to. Okay, I need to pause here because this story is just getting started. If you're enjoying the drama and want to see what happens next between Yvonne and Seo Jun, hit that like button right now and comment "Revenge" down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Make sure that notification bell is on so you don't miss any of our stories. Now, let's get back to the drama. The penthouse at the Kong Tower occupied the top 3 floors of a 50-story building in Manhattan's Koreatown. From the floor-to-ceiling windows, Yvonne could see Central Park stretching north like a green carpet, with the Hudson River glittering in the distance. This is where you live? She asked, still trying to process the opulence surrounding her. This is where we live, Seo Jun corrected. At least until you decide otherwise. The penthouse was decorated in a style she could only describe as modern Asian luxury. Clean lines, natural materials, priceless artwork mixing contemporary pieces with traditional Korean hanbok silks and celadon ceramics. A two-story library dominated one wing. A private gym and spa occupied another. The master suite had its own terrace garden with a koi pond. It was beautiful. And terrifying. There's a guest room prepared for you, Seo Jun said, leading her down a hallway. As I promised, nothing happens without your consent. Take all the time you need. The guest room was larger than her entire Brooklyn apartment. A California king bed faced the window, and through an open door, she could see a marble bathroom with a soaking tub that could fit 6 people. I need to call my family, Yvonne said. My mother is probably having a stroke right now. Of course. There's a phone on the nightstand. Take as long as you need. Seo Jun paused at the door. I have some business to attend to, but I'll be in my study if you need anything. Business? She turned to face him. What kind of business? He met her gaze steadily. The kind you asked me to be honest about. A shipment is arriving tonight. Nothing that involves you, but if you want details. Is it drugs? No. I don't deal in substances. It's electronics, high-end components that may have bypassed certain customs regulations. So, smuggling. Creative importation. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I never promised I was a saint, Yvonne. She didn't know how to feel about that. Part of her wanted to run, to escape this gilded cage before she got in too deep. But another part of her recognized that Seo Jun was giving her exactly what she demanded, honesty. Who drugged me last night? The question came out of nowhere, but she'd been thinking about it all day. The champagne on that server's tray, it hadn't been meant for her. Seo Jun's expression darkened. I'm looking into it. Initial reports suggest it was a stalker targeting a pop star staying on the same floor. Wrong glass, wrong victim. So it really was random? The drugging was random. You stumbling into my room? He tilted his head. My security team is still trying to figure out how your keycard opened my door. It shouldn't have been possible. You think someone set this up? I think nothing happens by accident in my world. He studied her. Get some rest. We can discuss theories tomorrow. After he left, Yvonne sat on the bed and stared at the phone. She should call her mother. Her father. Her brother. Explain what had happened and why she'd made the choices she'd made. But instead, she found herself dialing a different number. Hello? Jade, it's me. Her best friend's voice immediately shifted from sleepy to alarmed. Vani? Girl, what the hell happened? The group chat is blowing up. Someone posted a video of you showing up to your wedding in a red dress with some Asian dude and saying you got married? It's a long story. Well, you better start telling it because your mama called my mama, and everyone is losing their minds. Yvonne took a deep breath and told her everything. Overhearing Denzel's conversation. The drugged champagne. Waking up in a stranger's room. Discovering that stranger was Denzel's secret half-brother, and a mafia boss. When she finished, there was a long silence. Jade? You still there? I'm trying to decide if this is the dumbest thing you've ever done or the most iconic, Jade said slowly. Like, on one hand, you married a literal criminal for revenge. On the other hand, you absolutely wrecked Denzel in front of 300 people and destroyed his whole reputation. I don't know what I'm doing, Yvonne admitted. I was so angry. So hurt. And he offered me a way out, a way to make Denzel pay, and I just took it. Yeah, I get it. Jade sighed. Look, Vani. I've known you since undergrad. You don't do impulsive. You're the most calculated person I know. If you did this, you had a reason. The reason was rage. Nah. The reason was that your subconscious knew what your conscious brain wouldn't admit, that something about Denzel was always off. Remember when I said he gave me weird vibes? Yvonne did remember. Jade had never warmed to Denzel, and Yvonne had dismissed it as jealousy or overprotection. So what now? Jade asked. You just live with this mafia dude and pretend to be married? It's a real marriage. Legally binding. Okay, but do you have a plan? An exit strategy? What if he's actually dangerous? Yvonne thought about Seo Jun's cold eyes. The tattoos covering his body. The way everyone in the hotel had seemed to know, and fear, him. He's definitely dangerous, she said. But he's also the only person who's been completely honest with me. Denzel lied for 3 years. Seo Jun told me he was a criminal within an hour of meeting me. That's a low bar, girl. I know. But it's something. Yvonne paused. I need to give this a chance. Figure out who I am outside of the person I was trying to be for Denzel. And if Seo Jun turns out to be another liar, another manipulator, then I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. Jade was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed softly. You know what? That might be the healthiest thing you've said in years. Just, be careful, okay? And text me every day so I know you're alive. I will. After she hung up, Yvonne finally called her mother. That conversation was significantly less supportive. Yvonne Chioma Adeyemi, what did you do? She held the phone away from her ear as her mother's voice blasted through the speaker. Chioma was her middle name, and her mother only used it when Yvonne was in serious trouble. Mama, please. Just listen. 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 I flew all the way from Lagos for this wedding. Your father spent his retirement money on that ceremony. And you show up in a red dress with some Korean man and tell everyone you're already married? Denzel was using me, Yvonne said quietly. It was a bet, Mama. 3 years was a bet. He was going to divorce me 2 weeks after the wedding. Silence. What did you say? Yvonne explained everything again, the overheard conversation, the bet, the $50,000 at stake. By the end, her mother's righteous anger had transformed into something colder and more dangerous. That boy, her mother said, her voice low and deadly. That useless, worthless boy. I will destroy him. I will call every auntie in the Nigerian community and tell them what he did. By the time I'm finished, he won't be able to show his face in any event from here to Houston. Mama. And his mother. That woman sat next to me at the rehearsal dinner and smiled in my face like we were sisters. Oh, she will hear from me. My daughter is not a plaything for her worthless son. Despite everything, Yvonne smiled. Her mother was a force of nature when she was angry. Denzel had no idea what was coming for him. What about this other man? Her mother asked finally. This. Seo Jun? Is he treating you well? He's been respectful. Honest. Is he handsome? Mama. What? I can ask. If my daughter is going to marry a stranger for revenge, I at least want to know if he's good looking. He's. Yvonne thought about Seo Jun's sharp features, his intense eyes, the way his presence seemed to fill a room. Yes. He's very handsome. Good. And rich? Extremely. Well. Her mother's voice softened slightly. You could have done worse, I suppose. But Yvonne, be careful. Men like that, men with power and money, they can be dangerous in ways that aren't always obvious. I know, Mama. I'll be careful. And call me every day. Every day. Or I will fly to New York and drag you home myself. After she hung up, Yvonne felt lighter. Her family would be upset for a while, but they would come around. They always did. Now she just had to figure out what the hell she was doing with the rest of her life. The next few weeks passed in a surreal blur. Yvonne returned to work at Patterson and Webb, where she was immediately summoned into the senior partner's office. So, Harold Patterson said, leaning back in his leather chair, I hear you got married. Yvonne straightened her shoulders. I did. To Kang Seo Jun. Of the GM Group. Yes. Patterson studied her for a long moment. He was 73 years old, had been practicing law since before Yvonne was born, and had connections to virtually every powerful family in New York. "You know, we've been trying to get GMC's legal business for years," he said finally. "They use a small boutique firm for their legitimate work, but the rumor is they're looking to expand." Yvonne blinked. "I didn't know that." "Well, now you do." Patterson smiled, a predatory expression that reminded her uncomfortably of Seo Jun. "I don't know what happened between you and the Thompson boy, and frankly, I don't care. What I care about is results. If your new marriage can bring GMC's business to this firm, there might be a partnership on the table sooner than we discussed. I won't leverage my personal life for business. Everyone leverages their personal life for business. That's how the world works." Patterson waved a hand. "Think about it. And congratulations on your nuptials." That evening, Yvonne told Seo Jun about the conversation. "Patterson wants my legal business?" Seo Jun looked amused. "He's not wrong that we're looking to expand. Our current firm is competent but limited. I'm not going to." "I know. You're not going to use our marriage for professional gain." He poured 2 glasses of bourbon and handed her one. "But what if you earned it?" "What do you mean?" "We have a situation. A real estate deal that's being blocked by a zoning committee. Perfectly legitimate business, but someone on the committee is being difficult." Seo Jun's eyes glinted. "If you could resolve it through legal means, the firm that handles it would earn my trust, and my business." Yvonne sipped her bourbon thoughtfully. "You want me to prove myself?" "I want you to do what you do best. Handle my legitimate work, and the rest of my business stays separate. Everyone's happy." It was a test. She recognized that. But it was also an opportunity. "Send me the files," she said. "I'll take a look." The zoning committee situation turned out to be more complicated than Yvonne had expected. The difficult member was a man named Gerald Conway, a career bureaucrat with an axe to grind against developers he considered predatory. Rather than try to bribe or intimidate him, as she suspected Seo Jun's usual associates might have done, Yvonne did her research. She dug into Conway's background, discovered his passion for affordable housing, and restructured Seo Jun's proposal to include a low-income housing component that would benefit the community. When she presented the revised plan at the zoning meeting, Conway was speechless. "This is, actually reasonable," he said finally. "Why didn't your client's people present this months ago?" "Sometimes it takes fresh eyes," Yvonne replied with a diplomatic smile. The vote passed unanimously. That night, Seo Jun found her in the library, curled up with a glass of wine and a legal thriller. "You impressed me today," he said, settling into the chair across from her. "I did my job. You did more than that. You found a solution that benefited everyone. My people wanted to pressure Conway into compliance. You made him an ally instead." Yvonne set down her book. "Is that how you usually operate? Pressure and compliance?" "When necessary." His gaze was steady. "But I've always preferred negotiation. Force is expensive, both in resources and in consequences. The best deals are the ones where everyone walks away feeling like they won." "That sounds almost ethical." "Don't mistake me for a good man, Yvonne. I've done things that would horrify you. But I believe in efficiency. And ethics, when they're practical, are very efficient." It was a strange philosophy, pragmatic morality. But it made a certain kind of sense. "Tell me about your mother," she said suddenly. Seo Jun's expression flickered. "Why?" "Because I'm trying to understand you. And I think everything goes back to her." He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Her name was Minji. She was a hostess at a club in Seoul, not a prostitute, but not exactly respectable either. Richard Thompson was a soldier stationed at Yongsan. Young, handsome, promising. A bitter smile crossed his face. She thought he loved her. He probably thought he did too, until he found out she was pregnant. He left her. He left her with money and a promise to return. He never did. Instead, he married his college sweetheart and started his respectable American family. Seo Jun's jaw tightened. My mother spent her life waiting for him. She worked herself to death trying to give me opportunities, and all the while, she held on to this fantasy that he would come back. That he would acknowledge me. Did he ever? Once. When I was 15. He showed up at her funeral with a check and a request that I never contact his real family. Seo Jun's eyes went cold. I took the check. Used it to start my business. But I never forgot. And now you want revenge. I want acknowledgement. I want him to look at me and see everything he threw away. I want Denzel to know that his bastard brother built an empire while he was playing games with women's hearts. He paused. Marrying you was never just about revenge, though. Then what was it about? Fate, maybe. Or opportunity. His gaze met hers. When you walked into my room that night, heartbroken and furious and beautiful, I saw something in you. A fire. A hunger. You weren't content to be anyone's victim. You wanted to fight back. So you offered me a weapon. I offered you a partnership. He leaned forward. And I'm starting to think it might be the best decision I ever made. Something shifted in the air between them. Yvonne felt it, a tension that had been building for weeks, since that first night together. Seo Jun. I know. Your terms. I won't push. He stood and moved toward the door. Just know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here. He left her alone with her wine and her thoughts and the growing realization that this marriage of convenience was becoming something far more complicated. 3 months into their marriage, Yvonne's life had transformed beyond recognition. She was now a senior partner at Patterson and Webb, the youngest in the firm's history. The GMC Group's legal business had brought in millions, and her reputation had soared. Other firms tried to poach her weekly. She'd also become a fixture in New York's Korean-American high society. Galas, charity events, business dinners, Seo Jun's world was surprisingly social for a criminal enterprise. And Yvonne, with her sharp wit and undeniable grace, had become an asset he was proud to show off. But the Thompson family hadn't accepted their defeat quietly. Denzel had gone on a media tour, painting himself as the victim of a scheming woman who'd left him at the altar for his wealthy brother. Tabloids ate it up. Social media was divided between Team Denzel and Team Yvonne. Richard Thompson, meanwhile, had tried to use his political connections to damage the GMC Group's business interests. Investigations were launched. Permits were denied. Pressure was applied. Seo Jun countered every move with surgical precision. Documents appeared that exposed Richard's own financial improprieties. Witnesses came forward about the charitable foundation's money laundering. By the time the dust settled, Richard Thompson was facing a federal investigation, and his political friends were distancing themselves like rats fleeing a sinking ship. But the real blow came from an unexpected source. Yvonne received a call from an unknown number one evening while Seo Jun was away on business. Mrs. Kong? The voice was female, elderly, and vaguely familiar. This is she. This is Margaret Thompson. Richard's wife. Denzel's mother. Yvonne's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? To apologize. Margaret's voice cracked. And to tell you the truth about what my son did. They met at a coffee shop in the Upper East Side, neutral territory. Margaret Thompson looked 10 years older than she had at the wedding. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands trembled as she lifted her cup. I knew about Denzel's bet, she said quietly. He told me about it months ago, laughing about how he was going to win. I should have stopped it. I should have warned you. But you didn't. I thought he was joking. I told myself he would fall in love with you and the bet wouldn't matter. Tears streamed down Margaret's face. I was wrong. And I am so sorry. Yvonne didn't know what to feel. Part of her wanted to rage, to scream at this woman who had watched her son destroy 3 years of her life. But another part saw a mother who was finally facing the truth about her family. Why are you telling me this now? Because Denzel is planning something. Margaret pulled an envelope from her purse. I found these in his apartment. He's been tracking your movements. Taking photographs. Building some kind of case against you and Seo Jun. Yvonne opened the envelope. Inside were surveillance photos, her leaving the office, meeting with clients, walking through Koreatown with Seo Jun. There were also documents, financial records, phone logs, and what looked like witness statements. "He's trying to destroy you," Margaret said. "The way he feels you destroyed him." "I didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself." "I know. But Denzel has never been good at accepting responsibility." Margaret reached across the table and grasped Yvonne's hand. "I'm giving you this because I can't let my son ruin another woman's life. Whatever happens to Richard, he deserves. But you deserve better than this." Yvonne studied the older woman. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't. But I've spent 30 years protecting a family that wasn't worth protecting. Maybe it's time I did something right for once." After Margaret left, Yvonne called Seo Jun. "We have a problem." Seo Jun returned that evening with a full security detail. He studied the documents Margaret had provided, his expression growing darker with each page. "This is a hit piece," he said finally. "Denzel is planning to go public with accusations against the GMC group. Money laundering, racketeering, extortion. Can he prove any of it?" "Some of it. Enough to trigger investigations, at least." Seo Jun's jaw tightened. "But this isn't just about me. Look at the witness statements." Yvonne scanned the documents more closely. Her stomach dropped. The witness statements were about her. Accusations that she'd used insider information from the firm to help Seo Jun's business dealings. Claims that she'd accepted bribes. Fabricated evidence of corruption. "He's trying to destroy my career," she breathed. "He's trying to destroy both of us." Seo Jun set down the papers. "If these accusations go public, you'll be disbarred. The firm will drop you. And I'll be tied up in legal battles for years. What do we do?" Seo Jun looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something like vulnerability in his eyes. "I don't know. My usual methods, pressure, negotiation, force, they won't work here. This is a legal battle, and if we retaliate too aggressively, it'll only confirm the accusations." Yvonne's mind raced. She was a lawyer. This was what she did, found solutions to impossible problems, built cases out of nothing, turned defeat into victory. "We get ahead of it," she said slowly. "We control the narrative before he can." "How?" "We tell the truth. All of it." She stood and began pacing. "Margaret Thompson is willing to testify against her own son. That's huge. And we have evidence of Denzel's bet, the original group chat where they discussed it, the payments between friends. We can prove he's been harassing me since the wedding. That's his crime." "What about ours?" "Yours, you mean?" Yvonne stopped pacing. "The GMC group's activities. How much of it is actually illegal?" "Technically, less than you'd think. We've been moving toward legitimate business for years. But there are gray areas. Gray areas can be explained. Gray areas can be justified." Yvonne's legal mind was firing on all cylinders now. "We restructure. We get ahead of any potential charges with voluntary compliance. We hire a PR firm to reframe the narrative, not as criminals going legitimate, but as a successful immigrant business being targeted by a vindictive political family." Seo Jun stared at her. "You're suggesting we turn this into a race and class issue?" "I'm suggesting we tell the truth in a way that resonates with people. Richard Thompson is a white, wealthy, politically connected man trying to destroy his illegitimate Korean son and his black daughter-in-law. That's a story that writes itself." A slow smile spread across Seo Jun's face. "You're terrifying. I'm a lawyer. It's the same thing." The counterattack launched 3 weeks later. Yvonne's firm, with full support from Harold Patterson, who smelled opportunity in the scandal, held a press conference. They presented evidence of Denzel's bet, including screenshots of the original group chat, financial records showing the payouts, and testimony from Jordan, who'd been persuaded to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges in a related fraud case. Margaret Thompson gave a tearful interview to ABC News, describing her shame at her son's behavior and her husband's decades of deceit. And Seo Jun himself sat down with 60 Minutes, presenting a carefully crafted narrative of an immigrant success story, a man abandoned by his father, raised in poverty, who'd built an empire through hard work and determination. The tide of public opinion turned with shocking speed. Denzel Thompson became a punchline, the rich boy who'd lost everything because he couldn't treat a woman with basic respect. His carefully constructed accusations fell apart under scrutiny. The witnesses he'd lined up recanted their statements. The evidence he'd gathered was exposed as fabricated or misrepresented. By the time the dust settled, the Thompson family was ruined. Richard faced federal charges. The family's businesses were under investigation. Denzel had fled to Europe to avoid the media firestorm. And Yvonne and Seo Jun stood at the top of the wreckage, victorious. 6 months after the scandal, Yvonne stood on the terrace of the penthouse, watching the sunset paint the Manhattan skyline in shades of gold and pink. "You've been quiet tonight," Seo Jun said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. "Just thinking." About us." She accepted the glass but didn't drink. "About what this is." Seo Jun was quiet for a moment. "What do you want it to be?" It was a fair question. For 6 months, they'd been living together, working together, fighting together. They'd built something: trust, respect, partnership. But they'd never addressed the other thing. The growing attraction. The way his touch lingered. The way she found herself watching him when he wasn't looking. "I don't know," she admitted. "When I agreed to this, I was angry. I wanted revenge. I wanted to prove that I was worth more than Denzel gave me credit for. And now? Now I've proven it. The revenge is complete. The Thompson family is destroyed." She finally looked at him. "So why am I still here?" Seo Jun set down his glass and turned to face her fully. "Because this stopped being about revenge a long time ago." "Did it?" "For me, at least." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the same gesture he'd made that first night. "Yvonne, I've spent my entire life taking what I wanted without apology. I built an empire on ruthlessness and calculation. But with you, I want to be chosen. I want you to stay because you want to, not because of anger or obligation or convenience. That's not very Mafia of you. I contain multitudes." A hint of his dry humor surfaced, then faded. "Tell me what you want. Whatever it is, I'll make it happen. If you want to leave, I'll have divorce papers drawn up by morning. If you want to stay, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." Yvonne studied his face, the sharp lines softened by the fading light, the intensity in his eyes, the vulnerability he so rarely showed. "When I walked into your room that night," she said slowly, "I was at the lowest point of my life. I just discovered that everything I believed was a lie. And you, a stranger, a criminal, a man I had no reason to trust, you offered me a way out. I offered you a partnership. You offered me power." She stepped closer. "And now I have it. I have my career, my reputation, my self-respect. I don't need you anymore, Seo Jun." His expression flickered with something like pain. "But I want you." She reached up and traced the scar along his jaw. "I want this life we've built. I want to wake up next to you. I want to face whatever comes next together, not as business partners, not as revenge allies, but as husband and wife. For real this time." Seo Jun's breath caught. "Yvonne. I'm not saying I love you. Not yet. We're still figuring each other out. But I'm saying I want the chance to get there." She smiled, soft and genuine. "So what do you say? Want to start this marriage over?" He kissed her. It was different from that first night, not drugged and desperate, but deliberate and tender. A promise. A beginning. When they finally broke apart, Seo Jun was smiling in a way that transformed his face completely, not cold, not calculating, but genuinely happy. "I say yes," he murmured against her lips. 1,000 times yes. And for the first time since that fateful night at the Ritz-Carlton, Yvonne felt completely at peace. She'd walked into the wrong room and found the right man. She'd sought revenge and found love. She'd been a bet to one brother and become a queen to another. Life, she decided, was strange like that. And that's the story of how Yvonne turned her worst night into her greatest triumph. From a heartbroken bride-to-be to a powerful woman who wrote her own destiny, all because she refused to be anyone's punchline. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me which part was your favorite. Was it the wedding confrontation? The business takeover? Or the final romance? Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. We post new drama-filled content every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone going through betrayal, someone who needs to know that revenge dressed in a red dress is always an option, share this video with them. Until next time, stay powerful, stay petty when necessary, and never let anyone make you a bet you didn't agree to.